Hey everybody, it's David Barry. I host Money Matters and I host Leaving California Freedom. And today I'm super excited. I've got our sister city and someone that I work hand in hand with for the state of Nevada. And I've got Mike Wood, and we're going to do an unraveling of my new book that I wrote, Leaving California. I have been so excited to do this, Mike. Thanks for joining me. How are you, Mike? Good to see
Good,
you.
buddy. Good. How you doing, Dave?
I'm doing fantastic, man. This has been I've been working on this project for about, oh, I don't know. I joined Terry Gilliam, the founder of the Leaving California groups. He's got almost 300,000, and we actually become partners, and we have almost 300,000 members. And Mike, it's just so great. I have been looking, I think I met Mike about 3 or 4 months ago, but before that, I got to be honest, most of the Reno realtors that I met, man, they just didn't cut the mustard. And Mike, he's, for those of you that don't know this, I know he doesn't like to brag, but I can.
Mhm.
He's in the top five of realtors in Reno. So we're going to talk a little bit about Reno and the Reno metro area. And before we get started, go ahead and maybe you could tell our listeners a little bit more about you, Mike.
Oh gosh. Yeah. So a little bit about me. I've been selling real estate here in Reno for 20 years now. This is my 20th year. Helped a ton. uh, Gosh, well over 1,000 sales over those 20 years. I just enjoy this town. And I came from California. I grew up in Citrus Heights, just outside of Sacramento. Went to high school up in Lincoln, California. Beautiful town. Was tiny at the time, huge now. So I watched the change over there. Came up here in 95. So about 30 years, and 10 years after I moved, got into real estate. My mom sold real estate in California when I was a kid. I just enjoy the town, the feel, the outdoor activity, the people. It's just a very small town feel,
Mhm.
medium-sized city, nice folks, with incredible growth over the last, since about 2012 or so. We've just kind of exploded. So,
Mike, the
um,
reason I'm smiling right now is because I don't want to be negative, but I got to be honest. Las Vegas, we take a little bit of a beating. And I don't know why I thought of this thought, but I've been on a lot of cruises. I love going on cruises. I like being on the ocean. I like being in the Caribbean, but it's a love or hate. I mean, people will say, I don't really like going on cruise ships, but
yeah.
I do like it. And Las Vegas is the same. It's a love-hate kind of thing. And we do take some negative comments once in a while. Imagine that on our groups. But I don't think Reno gets as much. And it is hot in Vegas. I give you that, and it's kind of brown. But why do you think? And I want to dive into the book really soon. But before we go there, let's talk about the difference between Northern Nevada and Southern Nevada, where I'm at.
Yeah.
And why do you think that maybe Vegas gets more of a little bit more negativity, and Reno seems to get like people really love it up there? What's the difference?
So I would say out of the two, probably the reason people might not like Vegas has to be the heat. I mean, you guys got up to what, 120 this year? That's just,
It does get hot.
dude,
I got
that is a lot to bear. Phoenix the same way though.
yeah.
Big city, ton of things going on. You guys have the Raiders, you're going to get the A's. Vegas is a very fun town, but it's also huge. I mean, it's a big city. Every time, heck, I did it this week. I flew down there this weekend. Just flying over it is incredible. The sea of homes. I got to go down there again this weekend, although probably only going to be 103 this time. But I checked the weather coming back yesterday, mid-afternoon. It's about 3 o'clock. You guys were 103 and we were 89.
Yeah.
And I walked out on my back patio last night. It was absolutely gorgeous. The weather was perfect. I would say size. I think nationally, the gambling
Yeah.
might be a turnoff for some people. I mean, it's a total entertainment city,
Right.
and the strip is such a small part of it in geographic size, but it is a large part of it as to perception. So,
You know what I tell people, since you brought up the weather, and we are the entertainment capital of the world, we're also becoming the sports capital of the world. I wanted to dive a little bit into Reno and, the Northern Nevada and Southern Nevada. And by the way, if you're looking to leave California and come to Nevada, we've got you covered. And like I said, we're going to get into my new book. But as far as the weather goes, what I tell my clients is that in July and August, it is pretty rough. And I even admit it. I've been here since
yeah.
75, but we get 6 months of some of the best weather you can ever imagine in the country. So maybe later on we could throw some tidbits out there, because maybe some of you guys in California are thinking what, you may want to go to Northern Nevada, or you may want to kind of look at both. But either way, I would recommend a phone call to either one of us, and we can steer you in the right direction. So Mike, let's dive in. I've been working on this for 2 years, and it's the ultimate guide for enjoying freedom, to getting out of California. And we're not going to really dive into too many of the politics and problems, but I'm going to break down each chapter with Mike. And I thought it would be kind of fun to do this video with him and to talk about the different chapters and get his take on it. But the first thing is the negativity. So the chapter 1 is deciphering the Exodus. In your opinion, Mike, and I haven't really talked to you a lot about this, but I mean, you deal with a lot of people leaving California.
Yeah.
What do your clients say? What's the top things what's the main reason why they want to get out of California and come to Nevada?
Well, the majority of them that are coming over are, I'm 56, and a lot of them are older than me, and they're doing it because there is fear that with state taxes that they're not going to be able to enjoy the quality of life that they want to in 10 years or 15 years. So they're simply exiting a little earlier than they would like to. So
Okay.
it's either tax or it's politics.
And housing affordability, I mean, that's in my book, talks about taxation. The first thing, it's the high cost of living. And then we
Yep.
talk about the housing affordability. I mean, I imagine San Francisco and Oakland in that area there compared to Reno.
Oh gosh. Yeah, we look good. You guys look great.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And then natural disasters, the fires, business climate, quality of life, education, culture, diversity, political and social factors. So, Terry, the founder, and I do a lot of these shows, and it's so great to have somebody else, especially an expert like Mike, on here. But Mike will say the same thing that I say, the same thing that Terry Gilliam, our founder, says. We are not here to tell you to go.
No.
We're just here to tell you that if you're going to go, you need to have a professional, and you don't want to use maybe your cousin's best friend's sister that you never even met, that only sold one house in the last 5 years. Mike, that could be another podcast, right, Mike? And you could talk about.
I could be that guy. Yeah.
Yeah. So chapter 2, and again, I'm reading straight from my Leaving California handbook. Now, I normally charge for this book, and it's in high demand. I have limited edition hard copies, but I can also send you the PDF. And if you're really wanting to get out of California, I would love to send you a free copy. I'll include all of my contact information at the end of this show. But let's dive into chapter 2. So navigating the decision, making the process when leaving California, and evaluating personal motivations. We kind of talked about that. Now, accessing economic and lifestyle impacts on leaving California and buying a new home, and then weighing the pros and cons of leaving and buying a new home. So that's a lot, Mike, but what do you tell your clients that are thinking about leaving California and the process itself?
Well, the process can be complicated if you make it complicated. I think the key is for homeowners in California that are looking to exit, research on the area that they're going to go to, number one. Number two, if you decide that Reno is where you're going to go, it's key to make sure that the agent that is selling the home in California and the agent that is helping you purchase the home communicate. Because the biggest problem I've seen is the timing issues between the two homes, making sure that it's a smooth transition to go from California, bring all of your stuff into Reno, and have a house to move it into. Doing those dual moves, or even worse, having to sign a 6-month or 12-month lease agreement because the timing's off, seem to be the biggest disruptors in the people's lives. So it's just like any relationship, it comes down to communication.
I'm glad you brought that up. I wasn't really going to talk much about lending, but since you did, we got our national lender, Monty Feltz, who you're very close with. And Monty Feltz is licensed in all 50 states, and he has a buy now, sell later program that we can help clients, not have to go rent if they really don't want to be renting. And again, this is exactly why you need to use a licensed professional realtor, a licensed lender, and we can make this transition so much easier. And then one last thing about this, and we'll talk about new cities and stuff, but I imagine you probably tell your clients, if you're seriously considering Reno, you need to come stay in Reno for a couple of days, see if this actually makes sense for your family.
Yeah. I think a tour of the town We used to be able to do it in about a half a day. Now it takes a full one, but I think there's a lot to be said, not just for deciding on the city, but ultimately making a choice on the community, the neighborhood, what's around it, where's the shopping, who else is here, that type of thing. So, and it's not something you can just do by looking at a map and throwing a dart. So
Well, I'll be
invest a little
honest.
time.
I'll be honest. I've been in the state, I think, longer than you. I've been here since 75.
Yeah.
I don't, but what I wanted to say is that I know that you know Las Vegas better than I know Reno. I've been to
Hmm.
Reno probably a half a dozen times. I don't have
Okay.
anything. And I'm thinking when I'm speaking of Reno, I'm talking 20 or 30 years ago when I used to go
Yeah.
up to Reno. I used to go snow skiing up there. I always loved it. It was what did it used to, is it still called the biggest little city? What is that?
It still is called the biggest little city. Yeah.
The biggest little city
Yeah.
in the West. And so you know Las Vegas better than I know Reno. And I'm gonna, but what's cool is that I know you can talk Las Vegas with me. I don't know that I could talk Reno.
Yeah.
So we
It's
have Green
okay.
Valley, we have Green Valley, we have Summerlin, we have
Right.
Henderson, have Mountain's Edge, and I know you're familiar with those communities. What do you got in Reno? It's just for me and for our listeners.
Well, I mean, without throwing out names that nobody would know, but I do get clients that come in and say, "Hey, I want a golf course community. I want it gated. I want the people that live there to have a net worth over 1.5 million on average." And it's easier on the high end because we don't have just unlimited high, there are only a certain number of multi-million dollar homes. And in fact, with an average price point, median's probably 610 right now.
Mhm.
So once you crack the 1.1 number, it gets up into true luxury. But we have seen our price points push up pretty well. To a million gets you a really nice house in a nice neighborhood. But the majority of people aren't necessarily saying, give me names. They're saying, give me good schools. I want to be close to this. Here's my work. That's another one that we can do fairly easily, which is I'm going to work here. My spouse is going to work here. And we say, oh, well, let's make the commute nice and easy for you too. I mean,
Right.
we've got two freeways. One goes north, south, one goes east and west. It's pretty simple.
That is very simple. And I like the way you put that. And by the way, I mean, people come to Las Vegas and they say, I have to go in Summerlin. So by having a licensed realtor and a lifelong resident, I can tell them the pros and cons about Summerlin. And a lot of times after I tell them, you're going to pay 20% more if you live in Summerlin. And then I show them other communities, it makes more sense.
Right.
And what you're saying is maybe Summerlin and Henderson are not as notorious in Reno, but having a licensed realtor that can show you these little niche neighborhoods that work out quite well for your clients. I think that's a big plus. So
Yeah.
moving on, and Mike, let's face it, you don't get to be the top five realtors. I didn't say top 5%. I said the top
Yeah.
five realtors. And by the way, this is kind of a fun fact. I think Mike already knows this, but I'll throw it out there.
We'll see.
We have 18,000 realtors in Southern Nevada.
Whew,
18,000.
that gives me anxiety right there.
How
That's a
many do
lot
you
of
have?
realtors.
How many do you have?
About 3,400.
Okay, so that's still a lot. And
Yeah, but that you guys are five times.
our metro is 2.5 million and the Reno metro area, for those of you that are considering it, what is that number?
About a 500,000.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah,
So proportionally, you guys are about the same. Yeah, five times the size, five times the agents.
that's still a lot of realtors. And to say that I'm in the top five, I mean, that's amazing. So
Yeah,
congratulations on that, Mike.
thank you.
And so you don't get that way just by being a buyer's agent. So you get that way by being a listing agent and a buyer's agent. And we're talking about preparing your home for sale. This is chapter 3, transitioning your residence. So for our California friends that want to leave and that are thinking about maybe coming to Nevada or Nashville, what would you tell them about getting their home ready and staging and all those thoughts that go through people's minds? Because it is kind of stressful. So what
Yeah,
would you tell them? Go ahead.
that can be extremely difficult, especially if they have kids, especially young kids. So the key with prepping the house for sale is to go through the home and get it as presentable as you can. And sometimes it requires staging. Sometimes it's a little landscape work. Sometimes it would really require a whole remodel, but the seller just doesn't. They're not going to put the money in for the return. So that we end up going to the house, walking through the home with the seller and giving suggestions. Sometimes we'll bring a stager with us. The ultimate goal is to make the house appear as though you're not living in it while you're living in it, which can
Right.
be very frustrating. But every day it's on the market is we might have some friends coming over to take a look. So you have to live in a state that sometimes you don't live in normally.
Right.
Get rid of the clutter, patch, paint, especially paint. Paint's so cheap and it changes things so dramatically. So it just really depends on the condition. But the idea is you're showing your home to a stranger and you want it to be seen in the best possible light.
That's great advice, Mike. Thank you so much. And by the way, again, I feel like I'm bragging on you, but I am bragging on you. You
You
don't
don't
get to
have to.
be in the top five, and I know you're not asking me to do this, but the thing that's really cool about Mike is that he has so many connections. He knows so many people, and it's not even connections a bad word, kind of. It's a relationship more than a connection.
Yeah.
He has solid relationships with people throughout California. And for those of you that are watching and you're in California and you're thinking about selling your house, can you talk about the relationships that you've built over the years and some of the cities that you really specialize in and you have some superstars in? You have some
Oh,
favorite?
yeah, for California, Santa Barbara, San Diego, LA, San Francisco, easy, and a ton around the Bay Area. So just different little enclaves on up into Napa Valley. And my favorite part about having agents in California is my wife and I like to travel. I love California. I really do. And I miss it. I think it's probably if not the most beautiful state in some places, especially along the coast. It's a beautiful state. So we'll go back and gosh, last year we did a 10-day road trip. Went into Mendocino, drove all the way down the coast, ended up in Huntington Beach and came back. And the nice thing is I get to stop and see friends along the way.
Sure, yeah. And in the last part of this chapter, Mike, maybe you could share this talks about closing the deal, the final steps. This is where people really get stressed out and maybe they've got a good offer, they're getting ready to close and they're kind of, is there any advice that at the end that you tell your clients that might be helpful to our members for leaving California?
Yeah, yeah. At the end of the transaction, the most important part is to make sure that everyone's aware of the timeline of what's going to happen when, that there are some double checks that are in there. So if you're buying and you're closing with the lender, make sure the lender has disclosures out. Make sure that you've got the clear to close, things like that. The first piece of advice is breathe, just calm down, just woosah. The second is make sure that you've got communication in place so that everybody's talking. We just had a deal where it's our listing and the day of closing, lender says, hey, buyer wasn't truthful with us. And had we known what we know now, we never would have issued a pre-approval. They got down to the final day and said no. I mean, it does happen. Doesn't happen very often.
Right.
But in 20 years, I have had clients with a U-Haul out in front of a house and 2 minutes until 5 o'clock before title calls and says, hey, we've recorded, you can actually give them the keys. And it is stressful.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
extremely stressful. And I think real estate agents should have to sell their own home and buy a new home every 2 years just so they're reminded of how difficult it can be. And
Sure.
sometimes it's not you or I, sometimes it's our spouse or partner that is the one freaking out. So
Yeah.
you
That's
got to
great
know
advice. Thanks, man.
who to calm down.
I like the fact, and I'll say it again, what he just said, just take a breath and you went any faster. And that's why it's so important that you have a great realtor that's going to give you the timelines so you understand what to expect and when. And there will be some things that are going to go sideways, but if you have a really good lender, they're going to and the cool thing is that we've dealt with it before and we know what to do in that situation. So
Yeah.
that's important. Now the next chapter, this one is one of my favorites. And I don't know if you guys can see this behind me, but the picture that's behind me, I have some martial arts stuff back there because I did teach martial arts for over 30 years. And I have my favorite poster back there. That's my Leaving California Freedom Southern Tour, where Terry Gilliam, the founder, and myself went around to 11 different migration cities. We interviewed realtors and they showed us, and we walked through the towns. We were doing, Mike, it was like 12-hour
Fun.
days. And
Yeah.
from the beginning in the morning, we'd get up at 7 and we wouldn't finish till 9. And we learned as much about each city because I really wanted to be an expert in some of the most beautiful places in our country. And at the time of this, by the way, I know that some of you guys in the South and North Carolina and South Carolina and Georgia are suffering through the hurricane. So my prayers and thoughts go out to you. I hope that things get better soon for you. But this chapter is exploring new horizons. So choosing your new home state, go ahead, take it away. What's your advice to somebody that's like, I want to sell my house. I got to get out of California, but I don't know where to go.
Well, don't let the I need to exit out of here put you in a position to make a bad decision that's going to affect you for a good bit of time going forward. Like the last thing you want to do is sell a home in California and move to a city and then find out within, I don't know, 2, 4 weeks that this just isn't it. The reason, and I've done things throughout my life where I thought, whoa, that sounds like a great idea. Let's do it. There's an old saying that says, if you're on the wrong train, get off as fast as you can, because getting back is going to take you that much longer. So I would rather somebody take the time, and whether it's a weekend getaway or a week's long, we're going to really get into this town, go to where it is, maybe pick 3 of them. And I will tell you, the only thing that scares people about Reno is if they're not told that, yes, there is snow during the wintertime. It's not debilitating. It's not going to keep you from getting to food. But you can wake up a few times a year and you might have to shovel. And if you don't like cold, you're not going to like it. So it'd be like, hey, I want to move to Vegas because the Raiders are there. Well, okay. Do you like 115-degree heat in July and August? No, I hate it. Would you move someplace that had it? No. Okay. Well, then don't do it. Right?
Yeah.
It's spend a little bit of time, do some investigating, do some reviews, watch some videos. There's plenty of people making content about their towns. You can little Google Earth and some time on YouTube. You can answer a lot of questions. But for me, I'd like to test drive a car before I buy it. I'd like to go to a city and kind of experience the culture, the vibe, what's out there before I actually do something like that.
And again, we're so blessed to have people like Mike. And for those of you that don't know, we have 350 realtors across our network. And Terry and I have done interviews with them. We've actually gone to their cities, and we have so many people in our network that more than likely, and we kind of focus on the top migration cities. So if you're thinking of 3 different cities, there's a really good chance that we actually have video. We have a realtor there that can share things with you. But Mike, that's really, really good advice. You really need to do your research. Most of the people, Mike, that I have dealt with, nobody ever says that they regret leaving California, but we've had a few. I'm not going to lie here. I mean, I'm going to be straightforward with you guys always. That's really important. With my martial art background, I want you to know, like, and trust me right off the bat. So we've had a couple.
Yeah.
Hey, I moved to Phoenix. It was too hot. We didn't like it there. But I think that you hit the nail on the head when you said that they probably didn't really research Phoenix as much as they should have, and they got there and they weren't happy.
Yeah.
But yeah, so great advice. All
Phoenix
right.
will get you though, man. I mean, I love Scottsdale. I just think is phenomenal. I could do it easily until I realize how hot it is starting in June, July, and August. So,
Well, the next chapter is financial foundations. And this one talks a little bit about financial planning for your move and thinking about the numbers and what that looks like. So, and by the way, if you guys are wanting more information, you can either have a personal conference with us. And like I said, I can send you the book, but obviously I can't read this entire book. It's about 60 pages long. But let's talk about financial planning for your move. What thoughts and advice comes to your mind about that section, Mike?
well, budget. It's literally as simple as that, which everybody should be doing on a monthly basis anyway. But anytime you're making a major financial transaction, you should account for the unknowns. Like how much? It's one thing to say, hey, I have $1 million home in California, and I'm going to buy $1 million home in Reno. Well, it's not just take $1 million and move it to Reno. Somebody's going to have to load the truck. Somebody's going to have to wrap the things. And I think sometimes people underestimate what their costs are going to be that are associated with the actual picking up of everything and bringing it over. Did you think of the fact that you're probably going to, if you're going to drive and you're going to get a couple of U-Hauls, are you going to stay the night someplace? Are you just going to make it a shot over? Who's going to help you unload it? I think little teeny things like that. I mean, everybody pays attention to the big stuff, but few pay attention to the little unknowns that can cause trouble in the long run.
And you're referring to something as simple as capital gains that somebody might not have even thought of, so capital gains tax or tax implications of selling your home or moving to a new home. So, but putting it all on a spreadsheet and, we always stay in our lanes. We are not accountants, so we're not going to advise you on as an accountant. But we're
No.
going to tell you, make sure you check with your accountant. Make
Yes.
sure you check with your lender. We don't want to get you to a new state and you're looking at, $1.2 million homes and you find out that you can only get a loan for 900,000. So these things are really, really important. So I think, Mike, your advice is that you're saying, make sure you keep in mind the small stuff and don't just look at the grand stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Ask questions. Like you said, David, we've got Monty on the lending side, but we all also have CPAs, we've got financial advisors, we've got there are a lot of moving parts, especially I'll tell you what I've been doing lately because I found that my clients are of a certain age where they're coming to Reno they want to save as much money as they can for the rest. Well, if you've owned a home for a year and a half and it's appreciated $200,000 because the market was going crazy a year and a half ago, you might want to talk to a CPA about the tax implications of doing that.
Sure. Got it. Well, that's great advice. And we're going to move on to chapter 6, navigating the housing market in your new state. That's pretty easy. Go ahead. You take it away. I'm not even going to say anything on
That's
this one.
simple. All you have to do is talk to a real estate agent and say, "Hey, what's going on?" Like literally, that's just current market information.
And talk to me a little bit about how do they find that realtor and how important does it really matter which realtor they choose?
So the answer is yes, it does matter which realtor they choose. And I don't mean that because you need to pick me. We've got 3,400, and I would tell you there are very few that I don't know, like, and trust. We got some really good agents in this town. I mean, phenomenal. We've got agents that don't sell as many homes, but the service is incredible, and you won't find them on a top 10 list because that's not the business model they're running. Theirs is a very boutique, very high touch, very personal. The easiest way is if you know somebody in that town, you have a family member, things like that, you ask them if they know somebody. So word of mouth has always been the most powerful because it's typically that people don't want to put their name on the line for something. Like I would never tell you to go to a restaurant that was a terrible restaurant. You just don't have it. So if I go to a terrible restaurant, I will tell you it was a terrible restaurant. You should never go there. Right. So that happened.
Yeah.
Outside of somebody in the town that might have some knowledge, you can always call title companies. Title companies deal with a lot of real estate agents. You can use Google reviews. So you can go on to Google and type in. And then again, there are a large number of real estate agents that are really good about getting reviews from past clients, things like that. So the easiest and probably the most fair is to find somebody in that town that you respect that can give you some guidance.
Well, that's great advice. And again, Terry Gilliam's been working on that for 6 years now. And as I mentioned, we have 350 realtors across the country. So hopefully we'll have one of our premier realtors that Terry has already had those conversations. I don't know if I've even told you this before, Mike, but Terry normally gets about 5 to 15 requests from realtors to be able to post on the group. And we are very selective on who we choose that can do this because we have to know them and we have to like them. We have to trust them. So you can start here with us. We hope that you will give us our premier realtors a chance, first. But if we don't have someone in that city, we can certainly steer you in the right direction. Go ahead, Mike, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say it's nice to have groups like that because there's a lot of self accountability in that you can vet them. And I'll tell you, a lot of us have been trained in being interviewed. So we know the answers to the questions. We know we're really good about that. Whether that stays consistent through the process, that's kind of hard to really put a finger on. But if I've got somebody in a group that like not Let's Hip, but a BNI. I mean, I've had people that have interviewed really well for a BNI and you bring them in and then all of a sudden what they told you wasn't the same as what you got. The nice thing about having a group is all it takes is for one client to say, "Hey, wait a second, you sent me somebody and it just didn't work out." And you get that loss of integrity. It's the easiest way to get kicked out of a group. So
And one last thing about the group, all of the people that we have that work and associate with us in Leaving California, that's what we do. We help
mhm,
people leave California. So
right.
you're dealing with people that do this a lot. And, I don't mean to be, hard on any realtors, but if a realtor hasn't really done a Leaving California, somebody and help them, and it's not even Leaving California because we do relocations
Yeah,
all
relocation.
over the
Yeah.
country, all over the country. But if you work with a realtor that doesn't have that experience and they don't really understand all the nuts and bolts of it, you could be asking for a headache. There's one more part of the book, Mike, that I really want your expert advice in,
Okay.
and I get this all the time in Las Vegas, and I'm sure you get it as well. I just sold my home in California. I'm going to go to this new city, and I think I'm just going to rent for the next year. I do want to be a homeowner again. I know how important it is. What do you advise your clients that come to you with that statement? I think I'm just going to go ahead and rent for the next year. Please explain.
That's a sucker question, is what that is. It really depends on their situation, to be honest with you. And after asking questions, in fact, I did this to a guy who just moved into his place 2 weeks ago. He was unsure whether or not he was going to keep the job. He really didn't know what part of town he wanted to be in because he hadn't spent any time here. He had his budget and he kind of knew what he wanted in a home, which made it easy for me because I had a couple of parts of town. But the thing is if in 6 months they didn't renew him or he decided he didn't like the job, does he want to be a homeowner that now has to sell a property to exit? And we spent probably 30-45 minutes on it between two phone calls, and he wanted to play the safe, let me rent for 12 months. Totally understands, hey, if the market goes up, I'm losing out. But that's simply a premium for having some time. Then again, if the inverse happens and the market does go down a little bit, hey, look at him. He's got himself in a safe position. I believe in home ownership. I believe in long-term home ownership. And I would never push anybody to buy a house if there was a reasonable chance that they were going to sell that house within, say, 3 years, and they were expecting a gain in the price of that house over those 3 years. Because I wouldn't want to tell them I do have a crystal ball, which I don't.
Yeah.
And based on what I'm seeing nationwide and my local market with and especially newer circumstances in the last 2 to 3 years, things that have happened that have direct effects on the market and market pricing. I don't know that I would want to put myself in a position to give somebody advice on something that probably would not be in their best interest.
And I think it would boil down to a cost analysis, and you could do a price breakdown maybe for the,
Totally. Totally.
yeah, yeah,
And if
yeah.
and if and if there wasn't such a disparaging gap between my rental amounts for a neighborhood and what that looked like on a mortgage. Now, if they're paying cash and it's a store of value, so they're going to buy the house, they're going to move into it, they're going to do a 1031, rent it out for 6 months, then move into it. Things like that totally make sense. I get it. But I wouldn't tell somebody, hey, to get into the neighborhood that you want to get into, it's going to cost you're going to need $45,000 down and your monthly payment's going to be $4,700. Now, however, there is a house on that street that rents for $3,100 a month. If you'd like to keep that down payment in your pocket, throw it into Bitcoin for 6 months. That's a joke, but you could do it. I would, and this is just me talking. If it were, hey, I need 6 months to figure out if this town is right for me, I would, and the guy did. He sold a house in Southern California. Take the money, put it into a place where it's safe, but it's liquid. You can get to it really easy, but it's making money for you. So it's either a high yield savings account. Heck, you could put it into gold. You wouldn't have done poorly at all in gold in the last 6 months. So put it somewhere where it's moving and let's just watch the market together. The best part is if you're here and you sign a 12-month lease, property manager will let you get out of it. They'll let you leave early so long as they can rent the unit out. And right now, boy, rentals are not having a hard time at all. So I think it's a cost benefit analysis. And I think it's having an open line of communication, because the fact of the matter is if you come down and rent for 12 months and you love it and the job works out and all that, I'm still going to be the real estate agent. Because between now and then, we'll have monthly conversations about what's going on. We'll go look at some houses. I mean,
Yeah.
I want you to know where to go.
I get it, man. And we spent a long time on that chapter. I'm going to move on to chapter 7, but just to surmise, it's a case by case. And we're going to look
Totally.
at your situation. We're going to give you as much advice as we can. But the good news is, and we find this with all of our realtors in our network, is we're not here just to sell you a house. I do probably just as many rental transactions as I do sale transactions. And a lot of my rental clients, a year later, they come to me and they want to buy a house.
Yeah.
So I will say that whatever your situation is better, I will help you try to get to that decision. But I'm definitely not going to be here to say, oh no, you have to buy. That's not always the case. So this next chapter is transition logistics and handling legal and administrative tasks. We don't want to get too far into legal, but we would tell you
Um,
that you might need to have an attorney that can help you wrap up unfinished business in your community. You need to do that. And then having a realistic moving timeline. Maybe you could just touch on that one. What's a realistic moving timeline?
well, I think the first thing is to set the goal of when you would like to be in the new town, and then just kind of engineer it backwards. So at the far back, or the most immediate would be in my neighborhood that I live currently, the house I'm going to sell. So my departing residents, what does a CMA look like? What's the average dollar per square foot? How long are homes sitting on the market before they're going into contract? So what's my average days on market? My average dollar per square foot, how many competing homes I have. Once I have that information, then I can do the same thing, but in reverse for where I'm going to. I love clients to say, okay, I've decided I'm moving to Nashville, which has been a very popular place to move to lately. So get in touch with the Nashville agent, maybe go down to Nashville, identify your price point. So your lender, or if you're paying cash, the part of town you want to live in, and the type of home. How many of them are on the market in the price range that you are expecting to pay? So if I said, hey, I want a house 1 to 1.2, and I want it by the lake, and I want to be in Austin, Texas, I go get an Austin agent, and we can just do this on Zoom. Then I can go down there and I can look. And if there are 4 or 5 homes that my wife and I both say, yeah, this would work. This would work. It's in the price range. It's available. Half of them, a third of them will be unoccupied, so I could close quickly. Once I know my time frame for the place I'm moving into, then I can set the time. So maybe I've got houses in Austin. I want to get this going real quick. I price my California property aggressively to hopefully encourage multiple offers, and I find one that can close within 45 days, give me a 5-day rent back, and then I make a phone call to Austin and probably get on a plane and go check out some homes. And as
Yeah.
soon as I contract in California, I've already got the offer written. I just drop it for the Austin house, unless the agent's really good and can get them to take a contingency without a buyer on the other side.
That's great
Now,
advice, Mike. That's really good advice how you said to work your way backwards. And again, Mike, thanks for sharing. I don't have one. I wish I did. And you don't have the crystal ball, but we
uh,
can some guesstimations in on what a realistic time frame is. And it might take a little longer. And who knows, it might be a little bit shorter because we've been on both sides of that fence. What
yeah,
else were you going to
I forgot. Oh, well,
say?
it all comes down to data planning and knowing both markets, really.
Here's the next chapter I know Mike's gonna love.
Uh-oh.
So, he doesn't have all the chapters memorized yet, but
No.
the next chapter is embracing the new lifestyle. And you kind of touched on this earlier. So for our clients that are leaving California and they're moving to a new community, such as Reno, talk about embracing the new community. What do you got for that?
So what I'm finding, especially as I get older, my ideal client age gets a little higher too, because we tend to work easiest with people that the same age, do the same things. And what I'm finding is that this is probably one of the biggest reasons for them moving here is I've got a lot of retirees that want a social lifestyle. So they want to know, where are the wine shops, where are the pickleball courts, who has tournaments. They love to ski. So the nice thing about Reno is there are times during the year, both spring and fall, where you might be able to get up early in the year to ski half the day, and then you come down and play golf the second half of the day. It's
Mhm.
totally possible.
Right.
Tons of outdoor activity, but I think that the amenities, the culture, the vibe of a town is typically what drives people into it. And a lot of them just can't wait to make new friends, explore new places, figure out, what's going to be our favorite restaurant. Do we like this one? All of those, the story unfolds as they move in, and it's those experiences early on that kind of dictate where, what habits they're going to form, where they go to do this and where they go to do that. So the easiest way to do it is to follow people on social media that live in that town and share that town.
And that's part, it's the title and these sections in my book is building social networks. It's so nice to hear you talk about people getting excited about having social connections again. Sometimes the connections in California, from what I understand, is not so much, not so great. It's nice to live in a neighborhood where somebody waves to you or says, "Hey, I'm having a barbecue tomorrow. You want to come over?"
Right.
Just, you see the gates open, just come on back. You don't even need to knock. Terry and I always joke about this. This is one of our taglines. It's leaving California and welcome to America. And America of years past, when it used to be a friendly place to live, and we weren't so. I don't think I'm supposed to swear, but I'm going to say it. We're not so damn divided. I don't like it.
Yeah.
The most addressing emotional adjustments, because it's going to be emotional.
Totally.
And yeah, we've had people on our show before that are in tears that they have to leave. And I actually had one lady that said, I don't want to do this to my kids anymore. So that's for another show. We'll get into it. We got 2 more chapters to go, and I want to be respectful of time.
Yeah.
So this is going by so fast. The next one is legal and financial planning for interstate moves. We talked about that before, so that was in a previous chapter. This dives in a little bit more. If you have legalities, please make sure you get a really good attorney. Mm-hmm. If you need one, I can definitely direct you, and Mike has some in Reno that we can contact you with.
Yeah, updating trust, things like that.
Yeah, estate planning, asset management, financial strategies, considerations, and then the last chapter. Here we are, chapter 10, the emotional journey, building your new community, maintaining connections with your California friends, and then the conclusion. So go ahead and you give your take on this: the emotional journey, building a new community, maintaining connections with California, and concluding the 10 chapter.
Well, I think that the key is the one thing people want in life outside of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, food, clothing, and shelter, is connection. And when you're leaving a place, especially if my parents have been in California since 71, 72. So to uproot and come over, it's very important to make some new friends fairly quickly. And if you're later on in life, it's probably been a while since, when you were 8 and you walked up on the playground and the other kids were playing, it was easy. Can I be your friend? I'd like to play. Sure, come on in. It's still like that. The trick is find people that have similar interests as you do and ask them, hey, and this is the best part about Reno, is, hey, I'm new to Reno and I really don't know anybody. I've got 55 and older communities that are the majority of the residents are California transplants. And as soon as you say, I'm coming from San Jose and I don't know anybody, there's 10 of them that are like, well, you need to come over to my house on Tuesday. We're going to do wine on Tuesday. And that's when I'll introduce you. And it's almost overwhelming. The easiest way to get over a breakup is to get into a new relationship. And that's now at the same time, you've got friends, you've got family. And this is the one thing I've seen is once people relocate here, get acclimated, they start bringing their friends over. And that's when the fun happens, because now I know exactly the neighborhood I got to put them in, because I got to put Bill and Judy, close to Susan and Ron, because they're best friends. And wouldn't you know, they lived 4 houses down in Concord. Oh my gosh. It's that kind of, everybody has their own story. And once you realize that their story matters and you want it to be a really good one and you want to be a good part of it, you want to be, well, we met a real estate agent and he told us this, and that's how we got here. That's what I want. I just want a bunch of really neat stories, and they incorporate 2 things. One, he helped us buy a house that we lived our life in. And 2, one of the best financial decisions we made was to buy this out. And I ultimately don't have any control over either of them and how they play out. But the last 12 years has been pretty good.
Well, I'm going to take the maintaining connections with Californians because I do talk to a lot of people that have left California. And everybody that we talk to and we communicate with, they always say that they keep all their friends. With social media, it's really easy. They do FaceTimes. And most of our members that have left California, they do go back and visit family 2 or 3 times a year. Mike said it. I will say it. I've said it 1,000 times. I love California. I love San Diego. I used to love to go to LA. San Francisco was one of my most favorite cities on the planet, and they are trying to bring San Francisco back, it looks like. I hope they do. It's an amazing city. So I just wouldn't want to live there. But people go back and, you can keep these communications, you keep your friends. And the good news is Mike just shared with you, you're going to get some amazing new friends and you're going to have a new community, which is really cool. I know I'm going to keep going, man, because you are amazing. And so for those of you that haven't figured it out yet, I'm going to share with you another thing about Mike. And Mike is a coach, and Mike is a very, very high level coach, and he owns a coaching program and a coaching network. So you can see that. I hope that came through, but we didn't introduce him as a coach. We introduced him as one of the top 5 realtors in Reno. I want you to share, because by having Mike, and I don't have the experience that Mike has in real estate, although I've been licensed for 15 years. I taught Taekwondo, and I love to teach and mentor people and help people to have a better life. That's what martial arts always meant to me. And now being a realtor, that's what it means to me. And I'm very passionate about helping people get out of California and start that new life where they can actually enjoy life. So, Mike, I'd like for you to share a little bit about being a coach and the fact that when they get you as their realtor, you're just a natural coach anyway. So talk a little bit about coaching and some of your success stories with coaching realtors and how you coach your clients on this, because you would be a great coach. And if I was moving to Reno, I promise you, I'd be calling you and I'd be like, you're my coach. Help me find my house.
Come to Reno, dude. Well, I found coaching because I needed to be coached. I found myself at 13, 15 years ago saying nobody taught me how to help people buy and sell homes. The state teaches you the laws and you pass the test and you get the license, but nobody ever teaches you how to be an entrepreneur, how to own your own business, because that's really what real estate agents are. They're contract, not even employees for brokers. And so I went and sought help, said, who can teach me to do this? Much like a baseball player would say, hey, I'm pretty good, but I want to get better. And so I hired coaches, and then they taught me. And then I read and I did more work and work on yourself, I think, is the most important thing anybody can do. And then I got to the point where I realized I had a lot of knowledge and I wanted to share it. So I specifically want to help people that are in the same field and business that I'm in because it's the easiest. I don't speak HVAC. I speak realtor. So I ended up partnering with 6 friends and we started a coaching company. And the goal of the coaching company is, yes, it's to help realtors make more money and sell more houses. But the way they do that is by having more relationships and taking great care of their clients, and then asking their clients to send them people that they know that might also want to be really well taken care of. And I think that 56 years has taught me that I don't know everything. In fact, there's so much that I don't know that it makes me hungry to learn more. And it's that continual journey of having to get better because I have to give it back. I've got to give it to the younger agents to teach them. Same with the client. At the end of the experience, whether it's coaching, whether it's having an agent on the other side, whether it's a client that I'm helping buy or sell, I would like them to look back and say that relationship had more value for me than it did for them. Right. And I mean the client to say that, not for me to say it. I would like to be impactful. And if it's, I got you into the house that you raised the kids and the kids have memories from it, I think that's awesome. Yeah. That's wonderful. I'm not going to cure cancer, but hopefully I can change some lives.
Let me ask you, since you are a real estate coach, and that's something that I would love to do and you and I have talked about that someday, I want to be a coach. With the NAR settlement and with the craziness that the real estate industry has seen in the last 6 months, what would you say as a coach that you try to help the real estate agents? Is it relationships? Is it follow up? Is there something that you really wish that you could help the industry do better? Is there anything that you would share as a coach?
Yeah, it always comes down to relationships. It always comes down to follow up. I would say it comes down to integrity. It comes down to serving with the NAR. I think there's a big gap between the public's perception of what we do
Bingo.
in our job and what we really do. And the really good ones, my job is to make it so that the client doesn't experience the ups and downs during the transaction. Because I don't want, there's always if there are two of them, one of them has a tendency to be a little more anxious, a little more nervous. I don't want anything that spikes that. I want I want to be the Uber driver. I want them in the back. I want them to be listening to the music they like. I'm driving the speed. I've got the air at 72 degrees, and they arrive and they go, wow, we're here already. That was great. That's what I want. What they don't realize is that I'm dodging potholes. I've got somebody tailgating me. They don't need to know the drama.
Yeah.
And I've always kept it that way. Now, when you do that, the client says, oh, this is easy. Found a house, made an offer, closed on it. I would say share some of the drama, but don't do it in a way that would scare them or cause anxiety, things like that. I think we've been extremely quiet as to what we do, and I don't know that the clients see the value. And sometimes you have to say, "Hey, this is what I'm doing." I'll give you an example. I've got a great couple coming out of another state buying a $3 million home. Their home is in contract. They've got a date that they have to be down here. So I'm spending hours and hours, not just researching MLS, but walking through neighborhoods, trying to find a home that hits these specific targets. I don't get paid for that. Now, if they buy the home, yes, at close of escrow, I'll be compensated. But something could happen to them. They could decide Reno is not the place, and I'll be 25, 30 hours into something that may never pay anything. So I think the general public thinks that they find a house on Zillow, they click a button, and we open a door, and that's really what we do. But the really good agents, just like attorneys, I mean, if I had a root canal that needed to be done, I can go down to Mexico and I can get it done really cheap. And I'm not saying that it wouldn't be a good job, but I also know a couple of dentists here in town, and I have friends that are their clients, and I've talked to them, and my friends are like, yeah, that's exactly where to go. I have paid more money for certain things because I saw more value in where I got them from.
Yeah.
I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Mike, I can't believe that we have been going for an hour. This time
Sorry.
is flying by. No,
Sorry, dude.
please don't apologize. Absolutely not. I can go for another hour, and I'm not done yet, because what I want to do is I want you to kind of wrap up everything that we talked about. And it's funny, you actually kind of just answered the question that I was going to follow up with, and that is they're hiring you and they do get the coach. And I was going to have you share, do they get the coach? Do they get the realtor, or do they get you? And that's the thing. And Mike, I'm so glad you brought that up, because I say that all the time, and you said it very eloquently in a way that made more sense. We wear so many hats as a realtor, as a relocation director, as the leader of the Facebook group, as helping hundreds and thousands of people, just giving them free advice. I don't get paid for this. I'm just doing this to help people out. And I something about leaving California. And I hope for all of our members at some point they get a chance, and that's 300,000 people, get a chance to watch this. So the next follow-up question I was going to ask you was, are they getting a coach? Are they getting a realtor? And if they're getting a coach, which I think is amazing for the client, talk about that. And then I also want you to share your phone number and the best email address so that they can get a hold of you. And if you want to throw in a bonus thing, you could share one story about somebody that you helped leave California, and now they're in Reno, and they're just so happy. They were holding up their sign. They're going back to Reno. Yay!
That's what I should
know
do.
that's a lot. Go ahead, Mike.
I should get signs. I am who I am. I don't take off hats and put on hats, depending on the situation. I help people that are open to or ask for guidance. If I see somebody making a mistake and they're ignorant to the fact that it's a mistake, I have no problem saying, hey, here's one thing that I don't know if you've considered, but I think you should think about, right? And that that is coaching. That is being a real estate agent. My philosophy is this: life's a journey. We're all on our own journey. I would like as many people around me that can help me make the journey more fun, more enjoyable, more effective, than not. So the biggest problem I have is I tend to want to give advice, and sometimes people don't want it.
Right. Good
But
point.
it's never done in a negative or a malicious or I've made enough mistakes in my life because I did not ask somebody for some help. And that was the lesson I learned.
Mm.
So
And if somebody, do you want to share a story? Do you have one that comes to mind?
I mean, I can't think of one off the top of my head. I do get clients that are like, I'd like to move in before the end of June because I'd like more than 50% of my year spent in California. And I get a lot of the ones that say, Mike, I'm buying a $1.2 million home in your town, but my mortgage payment after 20% down is less than what my tax bill is going to be. So I can pay for this house all year long, and it's just out of the savings from the California state tax. Now, somebody like that makes a ton of money anyway, but doesn't matter. They still think the same way, which is what am I getting for my money?
And as we're closing up our session, is there any part of the book that I wrote that we both use now and we're giving for free to people that
For
want to leave?
free. Yeah.
What is there anything that really stood out that you wanted to any recap about the book or
No,
about
I think that if anybody's thinking about possibly leaving, and I don't mean like we've decided, because everything starts with a thought. Like the car that I own right now, one day I either saw somebody drive by in, or I thought, it'd be kind of neat. So I saw a commercial. At some point in time, the thought crept into my mind. And the very first time I thought it, I went, nah, that's not me. And then it comes back. So it starts with, maybe, what about getting a dog? And you're like, well, we don't have a dog. Well, what, it was 3 weeks later, you got a dog.
right.
It's you set it in the back of the reticular activator and let it go. So if somebody's watching this and they're thinking, I mean, we have talked about it, and you've got a digital copy of it that they could get, I would get it.
Yes. Yeah.
That's it.
Doesn't cost anything, right? I'm going to send
Right.
it to you for free. So again, this is the opening and peeling back of our book and introducing this new amazing book. And I hope it helps thousands and thousands of people leave California. Mike, as we're parting ways and wrapping up this amazing webinar, could you please share your phone number and your
Yeah.
email
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
somebody to get a hold of
Yeah,
you?
my cell phone is 775-250-2007, and email is Mike at renosrealtor.com. RenosRealtor.com. Realtor.
And as we wrap up this webinar, I just want to remind everybody that Mike takes care of our Northern Californians, or our northern, our north. I don't see. I say California.
Nevadans. See?
I say California.
See, look at you.
Nevada, Northern Nevada, Mike Wood, Southern Nevada, David Berry. And
Yes.
listen, if you choose somebody else, that's fine. We understand.
Awesome.
And like I said, I got 18,000 realtors. So I'm going to tell you there's some amazing ones and there's some that are not so great. But I'd like to think that I'm a really good realtor and I will take care of you and exceed your expectations. We already know Mike's going to do that. So if you just at least let us talk to you and just give us a chance. The other thing that I want to share is my email. It's Las Vegas at davidberryrealtor.com. And my phone number is 702-374-1771. And all you got to do is shoot me an email and I'll send you a copy of this book. And if you need anything up north, you got the guy now. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. This was a lot of fun. I can't believe it's been an hour and 6
I
minutes.
know. I apologize. I talked too
Oh,
much.
no, it's been great. All right. So everybody have a great day. We'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.